So my next question is, are all folks of people of all ages, are they equally captured by story? Does the research seem to turn that way, or have you experienced something different? What are your understandings of that?
Yes. So basically, if you're human, you are captivated by story. It's a basic marker of what makes us human. One of the things that the title of our new curriculum is "We Are Made of Stories and Stardust," because that really is our human orientation. And we were oral creatures for so much longer than we have been scribally literate or any other types of literacy. So deep in our DNA is that we share meaning and we share value and we share all of these mythologies and folklore that tell us who we are and what we're about through story. I really love the book Sapiens. It's at least 10 years old now by Yuval Noah Harari. And in that book, one of the central premises is that there were a lot of humanoid type ancestors in the past. But today, Neanderthals, for example, my 23andMe test show that I have a high percentage of Neanderthal, which a lot of people with European ancestry have because that's the region of the world that they were in. Um, but why are there no other types of these ancestors anymore? Why are Homo sapiens the only ones that we know, that exist today? And he argues that it was our storytelling capacity, because even now, our close primate ancestors, like chimps and example, they only have bands of like 120 to 150 individuals. That's about as many social stories that you can keep track of, like who to trust, who's actually cheating you, who's sleeping with whom. So, when they tell this story, that's all that we can really keep track of. However, a story, you think of like these nation state stories we tell right now, or think of the story of money, which we happen to all believe in, even though it's not a real thing. There's a lot of story that can connect millions of individuals around a shared goal. And that ultimately, he argues that is why Homo sapiens were able to become so dominant. So it was our storytelling that like created who we are today. So yeah, story
And
is
our
like innately who we are.
and our kids are surrounded by stories, not only in culture as we are too, and in television and in various media. They're surrounded by story at school,
Mm,
whereas one of the few places that adults are surrounded by story is at church.
Mm.
And so I think that's a really interesting thing. We don't Many of us spend our daily lives not immersed in story the way we were as children when our teachers read to us,
mm,
when we were delving into to studying story for the first time. And so church gives us the opportunity to explore stories in a really
mm,
deep and meaningful way,
mm.
and to practice telling our own stories,
Yeah,
which does take practice.
yeah. Yeah, that's interesting to think about the church as being one of the cultural hubs for adults in particular to be able to explore story and wrestle with them, both their own and stories that have been handed down to us for generations.
And
That's really interesting.
one of the great things about being in a progressive Christian context is not only the ability, but frankly, the mandate to wrestle with Scripture.
Yeah,
That's our birthright, and
yeah,
uh, it is a challenge, but it's a necessary one.
yeah.
And for our kids to get that early on is just a gift.